Excuse me, Bob. In my packet, I got the packet from Yvette today. When I'm turning the pages over after I get through just the regular agenda, you know, before we get to all the paperwork, the next thing that shows up is the Forest and Beach Commission restoration efforts for the pathway. Is that going to come before we get to or after we go through public hearings?
On the agenda, there's a roll call.
Yes.
Extraordinary business, at which point I'll introduce Shirley.
That's okay. That's the extraordinary business.
Right. Extraordinary business, and then public appearance is back to the normal approach.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm just waiting until 3:30 to start the meeting, make sure everybody's on board. So just give us one more minute.
It looks like we're waiting for Mike to get on. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Right on time. We will call the meeting for the December 9th, 2021 Forest and Beach Commission meeting, call to order, and we're ready for a roll call.
Burling.
Here.
Commissioner Cadell.
Here.
Chair Mosley.
Here.
Commissioner Myers.
Here.
Commissioner Sowers.
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Sowers, I didn't hear it.
Powers is here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Next on our agenda is extraordinary business. Director Harari.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The Scenic Pathway Project update, really looking forward to sharing that with the Commission. Going back in time a little bit, the pathway for the past, say, 10 years, before Carmel Cares, Public Works had roughly the equivalent staff of one person to manage the pathway and the beach, and if not other areas as well. Spread way too thin to effectively maintain the pathway, and which is why it became very overgrown and trash and things of that nature. So about a year and a half ago, Dale Byrne, who's online and will be sharing a screen in a moment, developed Carmel Cares, worked closely with Public Works. And really the very first major project out of that new public-private partnership was launching the Scenic Pathway Project. And the very first project manager under Carmel Cares has been Shirley Moon, who truly has done above and beyond the call of duty, has done a fantastic job on, and with great success in upgrading and updating our Scenic Pathway. So she's known this project from the very start. I just wanted to mention for those in the audience that there's a different topic later on in this agenda. It's item number 6 under orders of business, where we'll be talking about the park benches. We recognize there's some controversy out there about park benches that were approved by the Planning Commission. However, that's a totally distinct and separate topic. So if we just focus on the pathway project itself, and then at a later date, everyone will have an opportunity to make comments on the benches aspect. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dale to share the screen and to Shirley to make her presentation.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for commissioners for allowing me to present to you today. I look forward to just bringing you up to date on some of the accomplishments that we've made in the past 16 months. Go ahead, Dale, with the next slide. We started this journey in July of 2020, and the picture to the left there is pretty much representative of what the pathway looked like in various spots. And we were very determined to get rid of the foxtails throughout the length of the pathway, and it took a lot of trailers full of debris to get it done, but we did accomplish that. Before we really got started, we looked at the original design plans and wanted to really get familiar with what the designers had in mind, and so that we could retain the natural simplicity of the original design. And under that guidance, we then assessed the situation with the pathway and then developed a 3-phase plan to do that. Go ahead. Phase 1 was pretty much just this deep cleaning and pruning, but we also developed 2 other programs in this restoration project that have been really successful, and that is the pickup posse, where we have someone picking up trash every single day of the year. And the other really successful organization that we did was to establish a weekly maintenance with assistance of 3 gardeners and as many volunteers as we could get. And we do that every Wednesday morning from 7:30 until 12:30, with various number of volunteers coming to assist. Phase 1 was also an assessment of the rest of the infrastructure, and particularly the irrigation system, to see what else we needed to do in a different phase. Go ahead. So phase 2 is pretty much what we're in right now, and we had hoped that we would make more progress this year than we have on the infrastructure. We intended to do some guardrail replacement and repair of the border trim, replace signage, and work on some of the safety issues, as well as the retaining walls that are allowing the sand bluffs to spill onto our staircases. And unfortunately, we have not been able to get into the infrastructure this year. We have done some of the repair work on the retaining walls, which seem to help keep the sand in place. And we're in the process of replacing what we're calling the marquees on each of the fronts section of the trash enclosures. They've been missing for years, and the ones that are up there are very rotten. So we haven't yet determined the message that will go there, but we're hoping it'll be a key message to help people be responsible with their trash habits. Phase 3, go ahead, Dale. The irrigation box is going to be eventually replaced, and we need to communicate with the pump at Del Mar. Until we get the irrigation in place, there's no way we can go forward with the planting, which is discouraging from not only aesthetics point of view, but from an erosion standpoint. We're very concerned about the cut-throughs and the steep slopes that have barren sand. Eventually, we hope to go ahead and review the entire irrigation system and eliminate the valve, the pop-up heads, I should say, that at this point are more trip hazards than useful. And we will plant strategically so that it'll be a sense of discovery for people who walk down the pathway rather than just heavy maintenance with everything planted. And throughout all of these phases, we continue the weekly maintenance, and that has proved to be very successful to do it that often. Go ahead. We have not taken into account the condition of the 9 stairways. That is beyond our scope. And the granite seawalls and retaining walls have been assessed by David Schonman and Greg D'Ambrosio in their Carmel shoreline assessment, which I believe has a basic report, and then they've updated it. So that will be the reference for those 2 items. Go ahead. This is just a sample of what we try to do every week. We don't get every single thing done, but probably every other week, between 2 weeks, we do accomplish all of this. It's made a huge difference to do this kind of deep detail cleaning every single week. And we are constantly thanked as we work on the pathway by people who walk by. We've had people come bring us donuts to the work team, and we have one couple who continually walks up to us and hands us money so that we can continue our work. Go ahead. You skip, yeah. So this is pretty much south of 8th Avenue, the condition we found it in. So we've made some improvements, removing some of these mallow plants, and we hand trim them back every once in a while just to keep them under control. Interestingly enough, the ground squirrel population has also decreased some with the reduction of these plants. Go ahead. So even though this looks like it's a little more manicured, we truly are doing it by hand. So this was taken probably after it was just finished. Next. This was how we found most of the signage, tagged with stickers and dirty, and anyway, it was not acceptable. So go ahead, we cleaned that up. Go to the next one. This is very typical of graffiti we find on the sandstone. Someone likes to draw with the leftover charcoal. And so we're constantly taking care of the graffiti on the beach area as well as the pathway. Go ahead. Go on. We are constantly keeping the ice plant, the ice plant off of the stairways, and this is how we found 8th Avenue, and it was so overgrown. We found other stairways that way as well. And so we probably trim them back at least once a month just to keep it safe and open. Go ahead. We wanted to reveal the rock walls, the sea walls, for a couple of reasons. One, they're beautiful, but 2, the weight of this ice plant was quite tremendous on the seawall, and we didn't think that was particularly good for the structure. And this also allows us to keep an eye on the integrity of the wall. Because some of it, as you can see on the right, actually was growing down over the wall onto the sand. Go ahead. So we were able to clean off the ice plant and the acacia plants that lined the entire wall. And we accomplished that from 8th Avenue down to Martin Way. And It was a lot of heavy work, but we're very pleased that this got done. Public Works was able to come in and help us with their backhoe and take some of the heavier stuff for us near the end. So we were very pleased for that assistance. And I'm thanking you very much for your attention, and I'm available for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shirley. That was a wonderful report, and that is a tremendous amount of work that you've accomplished. Would any of the commissioners like to make comments?
Darlene, this is Brian.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I saw a hand from JC. Did I see another one? Brian?
JC can go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I'm simply just wanting to echo your sentiment, Darlene, that the work that Carmel Cares has done along the scenic pathway is fantastic, and it's such a blessing to have this group here in our community.
Brian?
Yeah, so I guess, as a question to Shirley, because I think she kind of segued into this a little bit in the front end, is in presenting it to the Forest and Beach Commission, I guess the question I would ask is, what can we do as a commission to help, with the pathway or other things that are going on down on the beach? I mean, I think it's helpful for us to understand what's going on in the context of now these projects that you've got going on there. But I guess how can we as a commission help the efforts that are going on down there, whether it's a voice or is it, our combined voice to Bob and Public Works to get things moving, or what? I guess that's kind of a question I would ask Shirley.
Yeah, I think any of that kind of support of our goals would be greatly appreciated. I do think you have a lead in this, and I think you have an influence not only in the community, but with the city council, and certainly Bob could enjoy your support of what we're trying to accomplish down there. It's been really, really difficult to get any of the infrastructure done, and I think having the Forest and Beach Commission support us and really cheer us on in whatever capacity would be a great influence on whoever's making the decisions for financial support. We were only able to get the capital improvement program money after quite a campaign. And I think Scenic Pathway deserves to be on an ongoing budget so that it doesn't ever go back into a cycle of neglect. So that to me sounds like something the Forest and Beach Commission could propose and support.
If I might add, Shirley, your work on the recent wall height improvements has sort of uncovered significant need for repairs on the stairways themselves, which then sort of cascades down into the seawalls, which is a whole nother massive project. And it could be that we really are in need of, who knows, millions of dollars in terms of making sure we don't lose those seawalls in some high tide, massive wave crash. And same thing with the stairways. So I think we would certainly welcome an open discussion. I know Bob would as well, to really investigate and go back to the original reports that we paid for as a city to start prioritizing that, because it's serious and it's significant. And we would love to support Bob and your commission in that regard. And I'm sure Shirley would agree with me.
Thank you, Dale. Bob, would you like to?
Yes, I think, thank you. Just a couple of comments. First of all, that the last picture of the rock wall, the panoramic view of the rock wall, every time I see that, it takes my breath away. That's really a huge amount of work. I saw you guys when it was happening, and it was a phenomenal project. Working together with Public Works was also the key to getting something of that magnitude done. So that's fantastic. Dale is correct, and that when a lot of the ivy and whatnot was removed, or the ice plant, that we did notice walls that are not properly on the foundation along the rock wall. We knew about that from before, but I wanted to make a clarifying remark in terms of public safety. There was, and perhaps Shirley and Dale don't know this, there were reports done many years ago by David Schonman and Greg D'Ambrosio about those, I think 11 sets of stairways that go down from the scenic pathway down to the beach. There was a report done by a structural engineering firm called Cra Beach that went through and identified hundreds of repairs to be made, or I won't say hundreds, but many dozens of repairs to be made. All the critical structural repairs as of 3 years ago or 2 years ago have been made. So those stairs are safe. There was a time where we almost closed one down. Those repairs were made. Those stairs are safe, but the problem is maintaining it in that condition as they continue to deteriorate is a concern. As the sea walls is also a concern that's going to cost millions of dollars. The climate committee has some kind of a dual role here because they're looking at this hardening of the sea walls for future sea level rise. So we definitely have problems out there on the beach. It's good that we know as much information as we do know. There is a couple of capital projects that will be forthcoming to start that long, tedious, and expensive process to make do some armoring on the beach. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Would any members from the public like to talk to this presentation? Brian, you still have your hand up. Did you want to say some more?
Yeah, I just had a question for Bob because I'm kind of going back to Shirley's statement to us about how the Forest and Beach Commission can support her efforts. Things like the replacing the railings and the aggregate on the pathway. I mean, what can we do, or what are the efforts that the Forest and Beach could do to help move things along, if that's possible? Or is it just kind of, I guess it's just keeping informed with how you're involved in this, or what? I'm just trying to understand that process.
That's a great question, Commissioner Sowers. Each spring, we put together a 1 year and a 5 year capital improvement program, except the year when COVID hit, which we had no funded projects. So, but money's flowing back, and we do have capital projects that are currently funded, but not started because of the staffing shortage we have. And next July 1st, we'll have a new batch of additional projects. So what the commission can do to help me is to support those projects that your commission feels would be appropriate for the for the areas responsibility under your commission. What I could do is I could present a draft of the capital improvement program, say in March, April, or somewhere in there. Here's a list of projects. There's going to be a whole lot of projects, far more than we have funding for. But perhaps there's a project or two that the commission can say, hey, that's an important one, and recommend to the city council of those particular projects that are of most interest to you. So that would help. It would help Carmel-Cares, it would help Public Works, and it would help the commission.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is that all right? Hi,
yeah.
My name's Eric. I'm actually here on another project, but I happen to be a trash picker in Los Gatos every day. I probably put 2 hours a day in, similar to the fine lady that did it. And I've talked with Rotary and I've actually found the same thing. I actually get accosted like constantly by people backing up and thanking me. And what I'm wondering is, because it's a prevailing, and I've worked in slums. I have a whole long background of like working with communities. And I've actually wondered just the simple idea of literally buying a lot of those little pickers with buckets and leaving them, because I have so many people that I can't, I mean, literally like every day I have 10 to 20 people I feel like stopping me and thanking me. And I'm like, well, buy a $25 picker at Home Depot. So, because a plastic problem, and I do it everywhere I travel. So I do it, I go to Maine and I do the downtown and people know me and I probably look like some crazy dude, but the amount of garbage I pick up is just staggering. So my hat's off to Shirley and your crew, because it's like God's work. But you know, I wonder if there's small steps that can be done that actually give people a hand in it, rather than, you know, just, and I'll stop there. Enough of my talking. So thank you. Congrats to Shirley and everybody.
Thank you. I see Lucinda Lloyd has a hand up. I can't hear you.
Okay, now I got it. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks very much for recognizing me. I just want to say a huge thank you to Carmel Cares for caring enough, excuse me, about Scenic Pathway to do the kind of work that they're doing. It's not a job that's recognized except by people walking by, but there are people who drive by, there are people who walk on the beach. It's just a phenomenal amount of work that they've been able to accomplish to do what hadn't been done for so many years. The thing that I noticed the most when the neglect was most evident was the patch of foxtails. And I thought of all the dogs that walk along the beach with their owners, and I wondered if those owners had ever stopped to pull some foxtails. But at any rate, I'm really, really appreciative of everything Carmel Cares has done. As for having the little kudos from the public, it's really kind of fun. In the job that I do with the plantings and the memorial arch, I get people doing the same thing. And it's kind of what keeps you going. But anyway, just want to say thank you to Carmel Cares, and I hope that we all give them the kind of support that they need to continue doing what they're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks again for all the wonderful work. And I have a question. I don't know, Dale, if you've been working, or Shirley, if you've been working at all, but the CRA has a beach cleanup, and I think it used to be scheduled monthly and then maybe quarterly. And I'm wondering if you guys work in conjunction with them at all for that, because they do have some of that equipment for just not restoring the scenic pathway, but as the gentleman was talking about, trash pickup on the beach and on the walkways. And I just wonder if there's any connection there, or if
I could respond. Is it okay if I speak now?
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
So there are a few things related to the last couple of speakers. First, in terms of the CRA beach cleanups, we are communicating. First of all, our relationship with the CRA is incredibly good and positive, almost unbelievably so. It's really nice to see. So Nancy's a good friend. She's one of our best volunteers as well. So we are having active discussions about partnering. We're certainly going to support their normal monthly beach cleanups, but in the meantime, Shirley has started a beach pickup posse, and she's got her first person she signed up. To answer the previous speaker, we have a pickup posse that's now citywide. We have a downtown and a scenic pathway, and now a beach pickup posse. It's sort of blending into our Keep Carmel Beautiful, which is a Keep America Beautiful affiliate. And so we have blue buckets. We make signs for them. They're all branded. And we buy the pickup things. We have the vests. And so we supply all that for free. And it's a pretty big and dynamic group, especially downtown, because they're going out together. I run into two of them all the time. So thank you very much for agreeing that it's a good thing to do. And Shirley started it, and Janice Bradner is taking it and running with it downtown. And it's really a lot of fun. And if anybody wants to join, just send us an email, carmelcares1@gmail.com. I think that answered those questions.
Yes, it did. And is there anyone else from the public that wants to speak to this topic? I don't have anyone on my screen. So again, I want to thank you for the presentation, and Director Harari's idea about putting the projects together and taking a look at what we can try to see what influence we might have for funding in the future, I think is a great idea. So I would look forward to doing that. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to our next topic, which will be public appearances. So I'm just going to read to you about public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern, not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on the commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. So I am open to public appearances. And Dale, I see your hand.
Yes, I'm actually speaking for Linda Smith, who I think many of you probably know. She's a good friend. She had a medical procedure. She wanted to be here today and she couldn't make it. Real quickly, she recently we attended the Urban Forest Council's webinar that they had recently, which was excellent, by the way. And she saw the recording of it, and she was very concerned with Matt Ritter's comments about the Monterey Pine. And she's so much concerned that she now is back with she was the founder of the Monterey Pine Watch, and she's now become president of again to try to get them reinvigorated. So she would like to start a discussion, and I'm not sure how you would do that, but to get it on an agenda soon, to really refresh all of our knowledge of the Monterey Pine Forest and its importance to this area, and to see what we can do to make sure that it doesn't get pushed aside, along with bringing in, if you didn't see the presentation, basically they want to bring in trees from warmer climates as climate change happens. And she's very concerned, and she has a lot of knowledge, and you should probably listen to her. And that's all.
Thank you. And I see a phone down here that ends in 832. Would you like to speak?
No, thank you. This is Janie Moore. Actually, I'm waiting for the tree issue. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Might have been my number.
Anyone else excuse me, anybody else from the public want to make public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to our announcements. Do we have any announcements? Director Harari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, at the City Council meeting of December the 6th, the City Council adopted the extension of commissioner terms. This has been an issue that's kind of going back and forth for the last couple of months. I believe some of you who might have even been termed out were extended through the end of this December. So now it's going to be extended further. Some of you, or you will all be contacted by Councilman Jeff Barron to go over more specifics. But in the meantime, I figured now's a good opportunity to get you all up to speed. So in order of commission terms expiring, the first one would be Michael Cadell's. The Commissioner Cadell's current expiration would have been, October 30th of 2021. That has been extended to May 30th of 2022. So essentially a 6-month extension. Chair Mosley's commission will be going through May 30th of 2023. Commissioners Burling and Commissioner Myers' terms will be going through May 30th, 2024. And Commissioner Sauer's term will be expiring on May 30th of 2025. The comment from the City Council was to continue the chair and vice chair of the people who are now in those slots through the month of May. Of course, your commission at any time could decide to shuffle chairs if you wish to do so, but the default will be is to continue the chair and vice chair through the end of May. And I believe the intent of this overall thing is that new council members could have more input into selecting commissioners rather than happening concurrently where prior council members selected new commissioners or something to that effect. So anyway, happy to answer any questions if you have it, but again, be on the lookout for Councilman Barron to give you a call personally and talk you through it.
Thank you. Anyone on the commission have a question for Director Hariri? All right. Let's see, we're going to go to our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any item be considered individually or processed for purposes of commission discussion or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. So on our agenda today is to approve the October 14th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. And then we did have a special meeting on November 17th of 2021. And so that's one item. And the other item is the consideration of the adoption for the meeting calendar of 2022.
To approve the October 14th, 2021 regular meeting minutes and the November 17th, 2021 special meeting minutes as presented.
Yes. And I do have to say that there were not everyone was here for the October 14th. So I don't know if everybody on roll call accepts that or just abstains from the vote, but maybe Yvette can help me figure that out.
Oh, maybe I can't make that motion then. I wasn't present at the October meeting.
Mr. Myers, you could make the motion for item number 1 on consent, or you could make a motion for all items on consent, or as what Commissioner Mosley was referring to, there were 2 absent on the October 14th meeting. If those commissioners wish to be absent or abstain from some approving the meeting minutes for a meeting they were not there for, that's fine. But then I would recommend that the consent agenda be split into 3 separate motions. 1 motion for the October 14th meeting, 1 motion for the November 17th meeting, and then a 3rd motion action for the meeting calendar of 2022. Or you can make it easy and just do 1 motion and get all of those issues done at one swoop. Up to you.
Well, I'll go ahead and retract my first motion and then resubmit a motion to approve all the items presented under consent.
And I second it.
Good.
Second it.
All right. Yvette, can you do the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Cadell,
Yes.
Chair Mosley,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
The motion is passed. Thank you.
Great.
All 3.
Next, we're moving on to public hearings. And our first item is the approval or denial of an application to remove a coast live oak at Guadalupe Street 4 northwest of 5th Avenue. And can we have a report from our forester, Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. We have an application from Janie Moore to remove a coast live oak in the rear of her property that is in close proximity to her house. Let me show you some photos. There we go. There. So you can see that the trunk of the tree is in contact just about with the roof line of the structure. The tree is in good health, and it does appear that part of the structure could be altered to alleviate the problem of the contact. So my recommendation at this point is to deny the application for a permit to remove the tree.
Thank you. It says I'm muted. Am I still muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Are there any questions from the commission? Yes, JC?
Thank you. Forester Sarah, the age of this tree? What's your general opinion of the age of this tree?
I think it would correlate to about the time that the house was built, which I believe was around 1920. I feel like it's more closer to like 75 to 80 years old.
Okay, thanks. And then you'd give it another good 50 years of life, as long as it stays healthy?
Yeah, it's one of the healthier oaks in town.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else from the commission have a comment? Questions for Sarah? Do we want to have a discussion on this or bring it to the public?
I believe that the applicant is on the call.
Oh, good. Great.
Darlene, I had one quick question for Sarah.
Sure. I'm sorry, Mike.
No worries. Sarah, is the tree in any way leaning on the house, or has it simply, the house was in such close proximity to it that it simply is growing next to it? I mean, does it seem to be sagging or leaning on the house, or is it just growing next to it?
It's growing next to the house.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you all very much for coming to my property today. I so appreciate all of your time and efforts on behalf of this application, and especially to Sarah for all of her time and efforts. I thank you all for your consideration of my request. So thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else from the public want to talk to this tree issue? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Brian Sowers, Commissioner Sowers, I see your hand.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to make a comment that I kind of picked up a little bit, and maybe if the owner needs to respond, it's fine. But as I understood it, the owner completely rebuilt the house like 20 or 30 years ago. So I would have thought at that point that the owner would have had an opportunity to have mitigated any potential growth issues around that tree when they built the house, I guess, the second time around. And so I'm kind of wondering why that wasn't taken into consideration, given that oak tree enough room to potentially grow at the level that it is today without interfering with kind of a newer built second structure.
Yes, may I go ahead and respond to that question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a little bit of a delay on my end. Thank you. So I rebuilt the house 11 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago, 2010, 2011. And at that time, I was not allowed to alter the structure in any way. It was either tear it down to the ground or leave it exactly as it stands today, because it was perhaps 6 or 8 inches over the setback line on the south side of the property where the garage sits. Later, that was amended, and the city came back to me years later and said that they would allow me to add on or change the house. But at the time, I had no ability to change anything, including that corner of the garage and living room. So thank you.
So I think you also said you rebuilt the deck, or the deck wasn't there originally?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. And I had inspections all the way along and permits for anything that I did on this property. So the deck was approved just as it sits today. And so we built it exactly as the plans permitted at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cadell? I see your hand. You're muted.
I think that was JC.
Oh, you still have a hand up here. I'm sorry.
But I'd like to talk.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Sarah Burling. Yes. Hi.
Should I go ahead? I don't know who you're talking to. Okay. One of the things I wonder about is we had the fire chief from, Monterey, who's really our fire chief, also come. And do you remember he said that all trees should be at least 5 feet from the house? So this increases the fire danger when it is right up against it. It doesn't look like it's pushing at this point. Naturally, at some point it is going to push because it's going to expand some. But where are we with fire danger?
Sarah?
Would you like me to pull up the map
Yes.
for that? Okay, one moment.
It seems to me that if we went through the whole little village of Carmel and picked out every tree that was less than 5 feet away from a house, we would have a deforested village. And I don't think that's what any of us want. And Sarah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I think I had the counties. Here it is. One moment. Oh, share my screen. Share. All right, this is provided by our fire district, and they have gone through and inspected all the properties in their jurisdiction, and we are at Guadalupe and 5th. All right, so it looks as though at Guadalupe and 5th here, where Ms. Moore's property is, it has been inspected and it has passed its inspection for fire danger.
Thank you.
May I speak? This is Janie Moore again.
No, Sarah, can you, I need to see everybody. Thank you. It's crazy.
Yep, I'm exiting.
Pardon me?
I'm getting rid of it.
Thank you. It's gone. Okay. So,
Madam Chair, if I may help.
Thank you.
If the commissioners ask a specific question to the applicant, by all means, we encourage the applicant to respond. But she had an opportunity to talk about, want to present any other evidence. And she also pointed information out at the site visit, which was very helpful as well.
JC?
Thanks. I do have a question, and maybe two for the applicant, and I'm sorry I didn't get my hand up before we closed that out. But if I could, Ms. Moore, that you've had a home inspector inform you that the tree is coming in contact with your structure. That home inspector was there for what purpose?
Thank you for your question. I have my house inspected approximately every 4 years because it was so old and I rebuilt it, and some of it is still old. So I have a termite inspection and a home inspection, and anything that they point out, I address as well as I can. And if I may just add, I just wanted to say, in the beginning, I failed to say the house is actually on the east side of the road, and I believe it was indicated initially that it's on the west side. So I just wanted to clarify that. And also with the deck, I was not allowed to add on or change the house, but the deck was considered exterior space or lot coverage, I guess. And because the house is only 770 square feet, I was allowed to add a deck. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I did have a follow-up question. And then did your home inspector provide a written letter for you to present to us that's a recommendation to have this tree removed?
No, he did not write a separate letter. I did not ask him to do that, but he just called out the issue and recommended that I have it inspected by a tree person or approach the city regarding this. That is probably the fourth time that had actually come up on either an inspection, or I've had that tree trimmed every 2 or 3 years since I have owned the property from 2010. So it used to look like the trees that are in the backyard, which have a lot of moss and such on them. So that it was called out, but no separate letter. I did not request one. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? And anybody want to make a motion? Anybody have any more discussion from our commission?
I think you have to ask for public comment.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this? I see no one.
So close it and then bring it back to us for.
Yes, let's bring it back. Let's close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Cadell, your hand is up.
I think, I think Ms. Moore, there may be, she may want to return at some point in the future if she talks to a contractor and the cost is somehow prohibitive to make a modification to that corner that would effectively deny her the beneficial use of the property. It seems to me that's the only avenue under which we could possibly approve the removal of this tree. And I don't think we certainly haven't had that demonstrated to us. So I would move that we follow the city forester's recommendation and deny the application.
Yeah, I'd certainly support the notion that if there were such a circumstance that her ability to utilize her property was being impacted by this, then that would be something we would want to consider. But based off of the photographs, and certainly, and it's great that as a homeowner in the area, you're doing the due diligence on your property on a regular basis and keeping a good eye on your home and having an independent inspector come in and give you thoughts about the future or even current. I think in this instance, there's not enough to even consider a removal of this tree.
So are you seconding it, JC?
Oh, was that an official motion? Then I am seconding it. Unless anyone else has some other discussion around this.
No? Can we have a roll call, please?
So I just want to be clear that Commissioner Cadell, that was the motion, what he said to deny and go with Sarah's.
Yes, I moved that we adopt the city forester's recommendation and deny the application to remove the oak tree. Without prejudice, if there's some additional evidence that she wants to bring back to us, she can do so. But at this point, I don't think we have enough to approve this.
Okay. Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Cadell,
Yes.
Chair Mosley,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
The motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next public hearing is for the release of a stop work order at Lobos Street 3 northwest of 3rd Avenue. Forester Sarah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Your report.
In August, the code compliance coordinator came across a property and issued a stop work order for a sewer repair. The sewer was being repaired, there was an excavation, and you could see the work that was being done. The excavation damaged the large buttress roots of Mr. Dr. Ron Rembish, I hope I said that right, of his private property tree. His damage was so severe, it was a high potential that the tree could fall. So he was issued an emergency removal permit to make the situation safe. So when the sewer was being repaired, there weren't any permits issued by the city at the time or the Carmel Area Wastewater District. And there was no pruning permit for the roots. And also the utilities weren't marked at the time of the excavation. So the tree was in good shape. It was a very large tree, 41 inches in diameter. And again, it is a private property tree of Mr. Rembish. My recommendation is that the all service plumbing who was doing the work that damaged the tree compensate Mr. Rembish the appraised value of the tree prior to the construction, which was $17,000. Also reimburse him for the cost of having to remove the tree and the appraisal, which is $4,400. And also the estimated cost to repair the damage to his landscape and to plant a new tree, which is $4,747.71. So that would be a total that I'm recommending of $26,147. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I can pull up some photos for us to review. Here you can see the trench where the work started, and this one large root has been severed. The angles aren't really that great, but there are more roots that are large like that further into the hole. So you can see it's pretty large stabilizing root to the tree. I was looking for more photos. There. So you can see here, based on street view from October 5th of 2020, that the tree was in pretty good shape. It does have the typical bark beetle that's in most of the pines around town, but it wasn't advanced enough for the tree to show any real damage. So there's a measurement of one of the exposed roots. So you can see it's pretty large. And here's the real problem. This is a much larger root than the buttress system of the tree. So you can see that was also severed. I'm ready for questions.
Okay, let me unmute. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Forester Sarah, in your report, you noted at the end that the owner of the contractor admitted that the damage was done by his firm. And is that admission in writing, or is that something that was discussed face to face?
That was just verbally on a phone call.
And then, sorry, as a follow-up, when you were discussing this, did you at that time share with that owner what most likely the financial implications were going to be, or is it just simply the discussion that, like, yeah, we did it?
Yeah, no, we had a discussion, and Dom Yanez is the owner of All Service Plumbing, and I saw that he was on the line. I did let him know, because it was a stop work order and the extensive damage that led to the tree being removed, that he would need to come before this commission, and that this commission potentially could rule that the appraised value of the tree be paid to Mr. Rumbish.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sowers.
So Sarah, as well, so again, there's a stop work order still on this property, is that correct?
We lifted the stop work order because there was actual sewage that was exposed. So the repair, as far as I know, has been made. But this is the formality to deal with the tree itself. So the problem of the broken sewer line has been addressed.
So, but how about all the issues around not having a permit for doing the lateral line, and the payment to the water department, and the fact that they didn't do permits? I mean, is there any ramifications for all plumbing that they can continue to do work in Carmel, given the fact that they don't have a clue what they're doing?
Yes. Brandon Swanson, our planning director, is also on the line. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon. From what I recall is that you will charge double the typical permit fees. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we do double building permit fees. Our code currently doesn't allow us to double planning fees, but all building permit fees after the fact, we have the ability to double those. Yeah, that's correct.
Director Herrera, your hand is up. Did you want to add something?
Mr. Yanez has been fairly cooperative with us. There could be, and it hasn't been in the past, where the Forest and Beach Commission could suggest or recommend that staff notify the California State Contractors Board about this more of a egregious case of pursuing construction without the proper permits. And we could do that. We thought about doing that. We hope that this is settled amicably and a good warning to that firm. But it's also, again, it's an opportunity for the commission to weigh in on other fines or fees.
Commissioner Myers.
A question in terms of the process in which we're going after All Service as opposed to the owner that hired All Service. So I could, for clarity, I'm just to understand why we would choose to do that as opposed to going to the homeowner that hired All Service.
Right, so it was my impression that the representative of the Walton Trust was not in town, and he was managing this property remotely. It is my understanding that he contracted with All Service Plumbing to clear the sewer line, which later evolved into a larger repair. So I felt like the Walton Trust wasn't present necessarily to supervise the work that was happening. I feel that the offender who does the damage to someone else's property should probably be the person that's held accountable. But that's, again, the commission's decision to make. And I believe I saw Tim James, who represents the Walton Trust. I believe I saw him on the call as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sowers?
Yeah, sir, I just would want to make sure that, you know, again, we're attempting to hold the plumbing company accountable for this, but if for whatever reason they weren't able to remunerate the city or the property owner, my assumption is the trust would be responsible, and we aren't negating that in any decision we make that would have an impact on that.
I think that's kind of a technical question that I'm not sure I have the answer for. It is a private property tree, so the damage was done to Mr. Rembrich's property. So I believe if we were unable to facilitate making him whole again in terms of his property, that he would have the ability to sue one of the other parties, the property owner or the contractor, to recoup the value of his damaged property.
I have a question. So this is private property and there are two homeowners involved, and I'm not quite understanding how we have the authority to levy a fine, I guess, is what we're doing, or to compensate a property owner. Does the city have the authority to ask one property owner to compensate the other property owner? And we did a lot of work getting the assessment of what the value was. And I just, you know, I don't know if the difference between something that's official and something that's civil, I guess. Director Harari? Yeah, let me answer that because I think I know where this conversation is going. There's no fees being paid to the city in this case, as where it stands now in the recommendation. Sarah was correct that it is a civil matter between two adjacent property owners. However, the city certainly condones behavior where, you know, a lack of due diligence and obtaining permits as required ended up damaging the urban forest. So we want to see this through, that there is some retribution or restitution, I should say, to the property owner whose lot has been damaged. The part of the restitution includes money to replant the tree. The arborist report was, I believe, was paid for as part of the removal cost. So the city had no out-of-pocket expense other than the time to put this packet together. I believe that staff would feel comfortable if the all services plumbing compensated the neighbor, made that neighbor whole. We believe the contractor would have learned a big lesson here, and we could move forward. But we could have looked the other way and said, well, you two work it out, you know, leave us out of it. But that doesn't help the urban forest. So that's kind of why we decided to bring this to the commission. Commissioner Cadell?
I effectively view this as taking action where someone has removed a tree or caused the removal of a tree without getting a permit. And I mean, that to me is what we're doing. We're addressing that situation, and we have the authority to do that, whether it's on private property or in the public right of way. And the fact that we're out of this, the tree will be replaced, I think is benefits the city and the urban forest, and that accomplishes our objective in requiring permits before you remove trees. So I think I feel very comfortable with this.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Myers?
I'm sorry to belate this, and I'm not questioning the commission's authority in this either. My concern is that this is directed to the forester because it's the decision the public works to come forward with it this way, why this isn't going to the homeowner, which in this case is the Walton Trust, being that they're the ones that contracted the plumbing service, and that it's up to the Walton Trust to go and collect those monies from All Service, not that I feel like we shouldn't be facilitating that part of it. They're the ones that hired All Service, and that's who should be compensating. I'm not even going to attempt it. Dr. Rembiz.
So we do have a precedent, very similar case with the pine tree that was damaged by the installation of a driveway at the northwest corner of 13th and Casanova. And in that case, the property owner's contractor did pay the appraised value to the city instead of the property owner, because they had done the damage. And they paid the city because it was a right-of-way tree.
But wasn't that, if I'm not mistaken, though, I remember that because it wasn't that long ago, wasn't the homeowner a part of that discussion and admitted the culpability? And however, whoever decided to write the check wrote the check, but wasn't the homeowner the one who we were actually addressing in that? And I remember that we had the contractor on the call.
Yes, we were. We did go to the property owner and not their contractor initially.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, this is a question to you before we actually hear from the anyone that cares to speak about this that's involved. And I mean, perhaps we're going to hear something different. I just wanted to make sure I understood why we chose to go after All Service in this. So I think I understand at this point. So.
Okay, I'm looking for anyone else on the commission that wants to make comments before we ask the applicant for their comments. I see none. So is there the applicant or a representative that would like to speak to this?
I'm not sure. Hi, this is Ron Rembish. I don't know that I made an application. If I did, then I'm glad to answer any questions, and I agree with what Sarah is recommending. We're just wanting to get the compensation for the tree that was removed. We were very saddened by seeing the tree go down. That was not something we anticipated. We've just been here about 2 years, and part of the landscaping that was important in our decision. So we really wanted to have that tree be there for a long time. I was shocked when I saw the contractors work. I was gone and my wife was gone for that time when they were doing it. When we returned home, we saw this ditch with the roots severed. It was shocking, actually. And anyway, we want to get it back to as close to being what it was. We'll plant a new tree, and we need to restore the landscaping, and that's what we're asking.
Does anybody from the commission have questions for Commissioner Cadell?
Yeah, I don't really have a question for Dr. Rembish. I was hoping we could hear from Mr. Yanez and possibly Tim James on behalf of the Walton Trust to find out if there is an issue. I mean, if we've got opposition or if there's an agreement to accept responsibility and to accept the city forester's recommendation, then I think this could be disposed of pretty quickly. And if there's not, then we may have more of a discussion. So I'd really like to hear from Mr. Yanez and or Mr. James.
And I saw them on the line, or one of them on the line, but now I don't have them on my screen. So, oh, there you are. Mr. Yanez, would you like to make comments, please?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me here. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the situation. I'm not sure if it'll make any difference either way, but just the whole situation, basically, Sarah, I think, spelled it out pretty well, that it was initially started as an attempt to clear the blockage by snaking the line, and it turned into more of an emergency situation where we couldn't get the line cleared through cabling it. We found what we call a Carmel trap. I'm sure most of you are familiar with those, or a house trap on the sewer line. And so a couple of my employees were there trying to remove that in order to further investigate the condition of the line and figure out what was going on and what further work needed to be done. And as we began, before we even had a chance to go get the permit, which we were going to do, we always do. I mean, if you look at our record, we've been in business for almost 16 years. We've been in good standing with all the municipalities and the CSLB. So we don't try to skirt the law in any way. And this is our first offense, and it was more of an oversight than an attempt to skirt the system or avoid doing things the right way. We do a lot of business Carmel. We have our business license with Carmel. And like I said, we've always been in good standing. I am sympathetically apologetic about the need to remove this tree. I personally wasn't on site. I did have a couple of my employees there. They cut the root, not knowing that it was going to cause so much damage and the need to remove the tree. They were just trying to get access to removing that trap that was underneath it. So regardless, I do take responsibility. That was something that we did as a company, and again, it wasn't an attempt to skirt the law in any way or the codes. It was just, trying to figure out what was going on and figure out the next step in the process. We did eventually get the proper permits once we figured out what needed to be done. We did get the entire sewer line replaced, permitted, inspected. Everything is good to go. So, but regarding the tree, again, I can't apologize enough to Dr. Rembish for that tree needing to be removed. And I understand that was something that he really liked about the property they purchased when they purchased it. And so I haven't had a chance to talk to Dr. Rembish until now. And I want to offer my sincere apologies. And then I hope that a new tree can get installed there that'll eventually, be something that they can enjoy on their property. So I hope that clarifies. If there's any questions for me, Commission or anybody, please let me know.
Right. Does anyone have a question that they'd like answered, or did that answer Commissioner Cadell?
Yeah, Mr. Yanez, first, as someone who's been in that position through the years, it's amazing how well received a heartfelt apology can be. So thank you for that. And I'm sure Dr. Rembish appreciates that as well. Are you familiar with the financial aspects of the city forester's recommendation? And are you prepared with your company to meet those obligations, hopefully with insurance or something of that nature?
Sarah did make me aware that there were going to be some costs. To be honest, I was kind of blown away when she just read the amounts. $17,000 tree. I am blown away. I am going to have to. It's been COVID time. Business has been tough this last 2 years. And so we've been on a shoestring budget, and I think I'm going to have to see if my insurance will help me out with that in any way. Since I have to pay it to the city rather than directly to Dr. Rembish, I was going to hope to work something out with him in some way. But if I need to write a check or give the city of Carmel a credit card, then I'm definitely going to have to see if I can get a hold of my insurance, because that's unfortunately that amount is not sitting in my bank account right now, and it's Christmas time. So it's all around bad timing. But yeah, that's obviously, something that needs to be taken care of. And so I'll do whatever it takes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is
else from
Tim
the public want to
James?
what? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask Tim James if he wanted to make any comments on behalf of the trust.
Yes, hello. No, I think the points that have been raised are what I have understood would be the situation, and I don't have any additional comments. Ron and I have been in reasonably close contact and will remain good neighbors.
Hi, this is Ron Rembish talking again, and I do appreciate the apology and the taking the responsibility and the accountability for that, Mr. Yanez. And yes, Tim and I have talked and want to be good neighbors, and I'm sure we will be going forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment from the public before we bring this, or does the commission have any questions before we bring it back for discussion? Mr. Yanez, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to ask because I'm not familiar, and I guess I could ask Sarah separately, but I'm not sure if this is something I need to ask the commission or not. But I completely understand the $4,400 cost and the $4,700 cost for the removal and then for the replanting and repairing and whatnot. And I just wanted to ask about the $17,000 tree value. Is that any way something that can be worked out between myself and Mr. Rembish? Is that something that Dr. Rembish, excuse me, I'm sorry. Or is that a hard and fast number that has to be paid, drop of a gavel kind of thing, or how does that work exactly? I'm just, I'm sure Dr. Rembish would really appreciate a $17,000 check. It's just that it's like I said earlier, a large figure and not something I was exactly prepared to pay at this time. But I understand if there's no negotiation or wiggle room on that, then it is what it is. But I just felt like I had to ask. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So my recommendation was that you compensate Dr. Rembish and not go through the city. So that's where that would go.
However, I would like to add that by all means, Mr. Yanez, to contact Sarah, who will walk you through how the $17,000 was determined. It's all based on a very prescriptive formula from the International Arborist Society or whatever it's called these days. And all the actual costs. So there's no hidden profit or any fee to be paid to the city. But we'll be happy to walk you through it so you understand what it is. And so when you do talk to your insurance company, you'll know exactly what, the rationale behind those costs.
Okay, thank you, Director Harari. And would anybody on the commission like to make more comments, more discussion? And
we may need to open it for public comment.
oh, I thought we did, but fine, let's open it for public comment.
We did, we can do it again.
Did we?
Yeah, I think you could close that and bring it back.
Yeah, let's close the public comment and bring it back to commission for discussion. Commissioner Cadell?
appreciate Mr. Yana's position. I do think legally he was retained by the Walton Trust to do this work. I think that they bear responsibility to employ someone, and they're responsible for whoever they employ and the actions that they took within the scope of that contract, that employment. So I would recommend, particularly given Mr. Yana's situation financially, I want to make sure that Dr. Rembish, who is the innocent party here, is compensated and the city gets the tree replaced, which is what we have the most interest in. I do think it makes sense, going back to Commissioner Meyer's earlier inquiries, that if we adopt the city forester's recommendation, that we amend it to include both the Walton Trust and Mr. Yana's company as the respondents who would need to satisfy those requirements.
Commissioner Myers?
Right. I am in full agreement that this amount, which is fully justified, in my opinion, the compensation needs to take place from the Walton Trust, and the Walton Trust needs to deal with all service however they deem fit. But they are the Walton Trust is ultimately the responsible party, and I would be for making a motion that is an amendment to the forester's recommendation that would require the Walton Trust to compensate Dr. Rembish the amount of the $26,147.71 for damage to his property and the restoration of his landscape.
Well, if that's a motion, I second it.
Any other comments? And can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Cadell,
Yes.
Chair Mosley,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
The motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public hearing is for the release of a stop work order at Camino Real Street 2 northeast of 4th Avenue. Forester Sarah.
Thank you. All right, another stop work order that was issued by our code compliance coordinator. This one goes back to July. I was alerted to the property by someone who was concerned that there was damage being done to some trees on the property there on Camino Real to northeast of 4th. Upon investigation, they uncovered excavation through the critical root zones of several trees. And let me show you some photos here. Let me share my screen. Okay. So this is the state that I found the property. So there is an irrigation line being trenched through that critical root zone of this cluster of oaks. It is not very deep. It is superficial. However, it still is excavation that's not permitted within 6 feet of a significant tree. Here, in this case, a new wall was being constructed around this significant oak tree. And you can see here and a little further down where the trunk itself had been shaved away to make room to work on the wall. Here's another tree, significant tree, with the wall being dug in less than 6 feet away from the tree. You can see that here. I did find root debris on site. So there had been some roots that had been disturbed. So let me stop sharing my screen. So this case is where a private property owner has damaged their own private property. So my recommendation is to have the commission determine how many trees the property should have per the recommended density table. This property is over 8,000 square feet, so the commission has authority to say how many trees there should be. Or if it's not possible to plant the trees, pay an in lieu of fee of $800. We'd like to require the property owner to reimburse the city for $450 for our consulting arborist report. And then since there were roots that were pruned without a permit, charge double the permit fee. Yes, again, this is a private property owner damaging their own private property. And it is not my feeling that the trees that were damaged would be danger to anyone other than the actual property owner. Any questions?
Excellent. Cadell.
I think Sarah had her hand up first. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I was wondering, Sarah, how many trees, do we know how many trees are on that lot? We didn't count them when we were there.
We do. Let me check my notes here. There are 10 trees.
20?
One redwood, and 9 oaks. There is one oak tree that appears to be more than one tree, but it's multi-stemmed. So right now there's 10 total.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to ask Sarah, the issue of whether the tree is a danger to anyone other than the homeowner is a little different from will these trees, do we think any of these trees will die in the near future and require replacement? And again, effectively, the homeowners taken actions which result in the removal of these trees without a permit. So do we have a sense of that, if these trees have been impaired to the extent that they're not going to make it?
Yes, I would say the tree that had the trunk shaved for the wall, that one's going to be the most impacted. It is in decline now, so I would anticipate that wounding would contribute to the decline speeding up. There's the other tree adjacent to the wall that was tunneled under, does have a significant decay pocket pretty close to the ground. So that tree too is in decline, but those would be the two that are the most concerning.
I have my hand up. Sarah, I have a question regarding, it seems like the homeowner is going to do some remodeling and have plans that are going to have to be permitted by the planning department. Went ahead and started landscaping, hardscaping before he got any kind of plans or approvals. And I think landscape plans go along with their remodel plans. Don't they have to be approved also?
I believe so. Marnie or Brandon, can you comment on your process?
So that is correct. Any exterior modification requires approval of a design study. We do have an active application that is in process, and that application has been amended to include the site work that was started.
Thank you. And when you were talking about the shallow trenching going on with the sprinkler, the PVC pipe going through for, I guess, an irrigation system, and you said that it wasn't 6 feet away from the tree, which is the rule, but it's so shallow. Do you think that that has a significant effect on the trees?
It can. In some places, the trenching was greater. Anytime you are trenching around a tree, you're going to impact the fine fibrous root system of the tree. That's typically within the top foot of soil. So it could negatively impact it. However, I didn't see any really impactful cuts on those fibrous roots. So I'm not so concerned about those trees, but it is a violation of the code.
Okay. Commissioner Sowers?
Hey, Sarah, just as a question, and this might go to Marnie as well, is that as a part of the landscape plan and as a part of our typical review on a piece of property when an addition's being done, it's an 11,000 square foot lot. So they have the proper density of trees on their property given the size of that lot. And I know you mentioned the count on the trees, but when we were leaving the property, it also looked like a Monterey pine had been taken out in the front. So I mean, that looked like a large, and I mean, I live on that block as well, so I know that tree was taken out. But just as a question on our requirements on, tree counts based on square footage?
Yes. So there is a table for density that sets numbers up to 4,000 square feet, and then from 4,000 to 6,000, and then 6,000 to 8,000. But once the property goes over 8,000 square feet, the density recommendation is as determined by the Forest and Beach Commission.
That said, Sarah, does the current count on that lot meet our requirements for density of trees on a 8,000 square foot lot?
Yeah. So if we go down to the 6,000 to 8,000 line, it should have 5 upper canopy trees and 4 lower canopy trees. So right now it has 1 upper and 9 lower. So if you add the upper and lower together, that would be 9 if the property actually has 10. But again, that's for the smaller lot.
So how many upper canopy trees are they minus right now?
They are down 4 if we're using that smaller size class. So they would need to have 4 upper canopy trees.
Commissioner Myers?
Thanks. Forester Sarah, to your recommendation, and perhaps Marnie might be able to answer this or they coincide. So asking for or requiring the removal of the wall and where it is approached, it's as close as it is to the oak and next to the fireplace or whatever that might be. That's not something that's within our scope of asking. That's something that the Planning Commission will evaluate and determine.
So I think I want to maybe make a statement of correction because we were talking on the tour about the location of that wall, and I neglected to mention that as Sarah has said, there's not supposed to be any structures within 6 feet of a tree. So had the plans come into planning with a wall proposed in that location, we would have told them they need to move it 6 feet minimum from that tree. So I do want to make that correction. We do look at that as part of the design study application.
I would also like to offer a photo provided by the landscape contractor of what the, I just got this today, of what the area previously looked like. And here. So you can see there was already a small wall or rock, but not as extensive as what's there presently.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Sowers?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll put that down.
Okay.
I believe we have the property owner, Molly Westfall, and also the landscape contractor that was working on the property, Rourke Craven.
Okay. Would, if we're ready for them to talk to this issue, I'm ready for them. And I see Molly's hand is up, so she might be ready to be first.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for taking this issue up, and it's been a long term that we've wanted to get this resolved. So just a few things on the tree up front. That actually was a dead tree. And so we went through the process, and PG&E took the tree down because it was in the lines and it was completely dead. So that's why that front tree came down. So you'll notice, and they actually did it, and that's on city property. So they cleaned that all up. So that really wasn't even our issue, but it was really unsafe. So we're glad that that came down. And then we do have a landscaping plan to plant more trees. So that's our intent, and to repair the fencing that's falling apart in the trash enclosure. So, and I'll have Rourke answer. We basically don't want to change the front look of the house. We just want to repair it and clean up and just freshen up the landscaping. So I'll have Rourke to answer to that. But
Rourke, you're up. You're on.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
We're on.
Okay, great. So the wall, what are questions? Do you have questions for me? Anyone?
I don't see any from the commission right now.
Okay. So what was existing, because the issue is the root on pretty much the one tree or the two trees that are in the back patio where the barbecue is to be installed. There was an existing brick patio that Sarah was so nice to show, and it does show an existing wall. And that's where the wall that's placed now is. And unfortunately, my men did damage the roots. And when I showed up on site, I said, stop, we can't do that. We have to move the wall away from it. And that damage occurred while I wasn't on site. It was kind of sad. And I know that the oak tree will heal and it will be okay. But one of the things that you noticed in that brick patio was that it's a solid brick patio. It was set on concrete. So tree roots weren't really going underneath it. And so there were no tree roots really when we pulled up that patio. So when we put it down, I think the thing to do is to set it in sand. So we'll do a sand set with the stone, and that will help with the growth of the trees and bring back vigor to those trees.
Thank you. Does anyone from the commission have any questions for Rourke? Commissioner Myers?
Thank you. I guess I just would like some clarity on the part where you said you came on the property, saw that your workers were building this wall, you told them to stop and told them to not do it anymore, but yet it looks as if it's completed in these pictures, at least the main structural framing of it. So can you maybe, can you repeat what that was? I'm just confused about how that process went.
So the process is that there was going to be a rear linear wall, and it was to be contiguous straight across. But when they found roots, the guys thought that they should try and remove them. And I came on site and said no. And so what happened was there's a jog in that wall now, and it comes forward. And that way it allows for the tree to survive. So it allows for us not to have to remove the roots. We also saddled any roots with foam so that there's growth potential for all the roots.
And then just a follow-up question then. You've been in business many years and have done many projects around the peninsula, and perhaps you might want to speak to that. To have built that wall into the height that you did, replacing what was just basically a stone wall, small stone wall holding back, you knew that would have required a permit, right?
It is not that high. It is... Also, there's going to be, the height of the wall is going to be much shorter because it's going to be built up. The patio itself comes up another 4 inches. It comes up to the height of the hearth of that little fireplace in the corner.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Cadell, I saw your hand up also. No?
Commissioner Myers asked my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from our commission have any questions? And can we open it up to the public? Anyone from the public want to speak to this? I see no one, so we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. And I guess part of the decision is how many trees we want to have planted on this lot. Commissioner Cadell?
I guess I wonder at this point, I'm not sure what the homeowner has told us. They're going to come back. They have a landscaping plan. They plan to plant additional trees. I wonder if we should consider this in the context of looking at that landscaping plan and looking at the number of trees and the kind of trees that they intend to plant. If the recommended density is 5 upper canopy, 4 lower canopy for a 6,000 to 8,000 foot lot, I think we certainly would want to aspire to that if possible. And maybe the homeowner intends to do that. I don't know. And right now, I just don't know that we have enough information. I'd like to see the landscaping plan and then what other remedial work the city forester thinks should be done before the stop work order is released, or if an agreement can be reached, then I'm fine with, endorsing the city forester's recommendation to release the stop work order with respect to remedial work, and at the same time still have the homeowner come back with a landscaping plan so we can see what the trees would look like and where they would be and what kind of trees we're talking about. And right now, I just don't think we know that.
Okay. Yeah, we're hoping to find some resolution because it's been a stop for our entire project and we're trying to move there. We would love to, any resolution would be wonderful since our intent is actually to live there permanently. We've been trying to for the last year. Sarah, is there any recommendation for trees that you want to see planted or any I'm not sure if we've received one.
I don't know if we really need to go there yet.
No.
Sarah's recommendation, and it sounds like you want to get your stop work order removed, and I would like to know that you have the proper permits before all this excavation and landscape happens, and it sounds like you're moving in that direction. So I to what Commissioner Cadell said, once you have your plans, we'd like to take a look at them and move forward there. But what do we do for now?
Chair Mosley, could I just recommend that we close to public comment, and so unless we have a question directed specifically to the homeowner, then it really needs to remain. This is a discussion that we're having as the commissioners about how we're proceeding forward with the recommendation from the forester, I think. And again, unless there's a specific question for the homeowner, appreciate that we keep this discussion amongst ourselves.
Fine.
Okay. And so it looks like.
And so, Commissioner Myers.
Right. Thank you. I think I need myself. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Cadell in that, and then again, understanding that the requirements that the forester is asking us here only satisfy the forestry portion, and the stop work order being lifted is something that is going to go back to planning, and it would appear to me that there's a number of things that are going to have to be addressed, specifically the wall and the proximity, all the things that, and even the landscaping plan, typically, I don't think we necessarily always see that. I think it would just end up on the forester's desk for her to review. And if she had some questions about it, well, then she would bring it to us to review. And I think, I certainly would trust the fact that she's capable of making a good recommendation. And I imagine that the homeowner has a fantastic landscaping plan. And I imagine it'll end up being great. But I would recommend that we would adopt the recommendation of the forester and move forward in this process. I really don't see what other things we could do. I'm certainly not pleased in the way in which the landscaping company went ahead knowingly, doing things that obviously knows how to do business in our town, but just chose to move forward with that. I don't like that, and I think that there should be something that we could adopt as a warning, but that's perhaps for another time. Those are just my thoughts. I'm happy to hear from everybody else.
Commissioner Cadell.
I agree with that. I would just move that we accept the city forester's recommendation, except for the portion that asks us to determine the number of trees required for the lot. And I would like to defer that until the homeowner comes back with a landscaping plan to either the city forester's satisfaction, or she sees fit to bring it back to us.
I second that.
Great. Can we have a roll call?
Can we restate the motion, please?
Yeah, the motion is that we accept the city forester's recommendation with the exception of the portion that asks the Forest and Beach Commission to determine the number of trees that should be required for that lot. And I'm suggesting that we simply defer that until we have an opportunity to look at the landscaping plan presented by the homeowner. And we can either do that through the city forester to her satisfaction, or if she feels we need to pass on the number of trees proposed in that landscaping plan, then she can bring it back to us.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment on that motion? It was a masterpiece, but I don't know if we're going to get that accurately in the minutes. Perhaps that could be, we can always watch the videotape, but if Commissioner Cadell could kind of try to make that a little bit more concise, I think Event will live a little longer, and we won't be spending that much time on the mini mints.
If you could just condense it.
I think I could repeat it. So I think what was said is we require the $450 reimbursement for the cost of the consulting arborist, require the $490 double permit fee for pruning, and then the commission will defer the number of trees required to be planted until a later date. Is that accurate, Commissioner Cadell?
That's accurate. Thank you.
That's doable. Okay, thank you. So that, Sarah, Commissioner Burling, you second, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Burling?
Yes.
Commissioner Cadell?
Yes.
Chair Mosley?
Yes.
Commissioner Myers?
Ours.
Did you say yes?
Oh, I did. Oh.
Okay. Commissioner Sowers?
Yes.
Okay, the motion has passed. Thank you.
Okay, Dusty, we're getting there.
Again, okay. Next on our agenda is orders of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require City Council, Board, or Commission discussion, debate, direction to staff, and/or action. And the first thing on our orders of business is to provide feedback on the 16 new pre-approved locations for bench dedications along the scenic road pedestrian path that were approved by the Planning Commission on October 13th, 2021.
Yeah, Darlene.
Yes.
Sarah, way back, weren't we supposed to agree to the schedule for next year in one of the early parts?
We did agree to that.
We did? Oh, that's very interesting. Okay.
We agreed to all three. We had three things on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
And we
okay.
I think
we did.
You are correct, Darlene. Yes.
Yes.
Right. So,
all right. Greetings, board members. Hi. If you're ready for me, Madam Chair.
I'm ready for Director Harari to make a presentation on
Right, my presentation will take.
Oh, Brian's going to. I'm sorry.
Brandon Swanson,
Brandon,
Director of Community Planning and Building.
Yes, thank you.
He'll do the rest of the presentation from here.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to confirm, everyone can see that full screen. I have two screens, so sometimes it looks a little bit weird. So you guys just have one. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Swanson. We've met a couple times. I'm the Director of Community Planning and Building here for the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea. Just a quick preface here. One of my tenets of local government and should be for all of us is that we always want to make sure that we're make people feel like we're doing something for them, not to them. That's an important thing about local government. As we all know, the Planning Commission approved 16 new benches back in October. They requested my department to bring that forward. The planning staff did the work, did a survey, did a lot of great job, figuring out where to put them. However, we did miss some key stakeholders along the way. And so, Carmel Cares, we had that wonderful presentation earlier from Shirley Moon. And of course, this Forest and Beach Commission. So I'm a big believer that it's important when you have missteps to own that, take ownership of it, which is why I'm here. Ultimately, it was my project. And so I'm here to talk to you tonight. When you take ownership of your missteps, hopefully you can right the ship. And anyway, that's why I'm here. So just a little preface for that. Let me go to the next slide here. So as I mentioned, on July 14th, originally the Planning Commission considered one bench along the pathway. They weren't happy about the proposed location. They thought it was unsafe due to its proximity to the bluff edge. And at that time, they provided direction to my department to come back with a presentation so they could consider the entire pathway at once and designate a certain number of pre-approved spots. It's actually something they had done before a couple years prior. So they wanted to do that again, and that would sort of in their direction would be the build out that you'd be all done, no more new benches. So how many more would fit? So our staff, myself and my team went out, we walked the whole path, which I'll go through here a little bit later, conducted a survey, came back on October 13th to the Planning Commission. Per the, we have a city council approved bench policy to seek PC approval. And based on all the past practice, like I mentioned, all the previous individual benches and that pre-approval set that I mentioned earlier had also just gone straight to the Planning Commission. I don't believe they'd ever visited this body here, the Forest and Beach Commission. There was limited public testimony at that hearing. The Planning Commission did approve. Staff had recommended 13 benches. The Planning Commission added 3 more on the far southern end of the walk path. There was no appeals received. That period ended on the 27th of October. However, once we got a little bit farther past that, November 1st, we did receive the first letter from Carmel-Cares, from Shirley Moon, the wonderful volunteer that we heard from earlier today, expressing some concerns about not only the bench locations because of future plans to do landscaping, but also the fact that they weren't involved or reached out to early on in the process. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this, sort of a mea culpa, they're a major stakeholder in this, and I take ownership of that. We should have reached out to Carmel-Cares early on when we got the assignment from the Planning Commission. Subsequent to Shirley's letter, we did receive additional letters voicing concern. There have been 1 or 2 letters actually supporting the benches, which I think were sent to you as well. But the majority of the letters we got expressed some concern about the bench locations. So why am I here today? The reason I'm here today, as I mentioned at the outset, is trying to right the ship. What I'd like to do is run you through the presentation and the thought process that we provided to the Planning Commission, get your feedback on the locations. And then in January, I will be going back to the Planning Commission just to make them aware of the concerns that came up afterwards and see if they have any interest in reopening the item, if they're still happy with the decision that they made, just to give everyone an opportunity, one more shot to have their voices heard in a public forum. So we'll be going to the Planning Commission in January. So today what I'm hoping to get from the Forest and Beach Commission is feedback on the bench locations that were proposed and approved. And then I can roll that into my staff report in January going to the Planning Commission so they can hear your feedback as well. So I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but we can talk about any of the locations that you'd like to afterwards. So again, this is exactly what was presented to the Planning Commission. You can see on your screen here, the red dots represent existing locations. The blue dots represent the locations that staff was proposing at the time. There are currently 37 benches built along the half-mile stretch of the scenic pathway. The proposed benches brought forward by my staff and myself were 13 in total. As I mentioned, the Planning Commission actually added 3 more at the far southern end of the walk path. We did a heat map, just some goofy, fancy planning thing that we like to do. But really, what you can see, the density of where the benches currently, these are the proposed benches are in the blue dots, but the heat map shows where benches are already sort of piled up. One of the thoughts that we came up with when we were doing our survey was, if the Planning Commission wishes to add more benches, let's try to keep them in general close proximity to where there already are benches, so that we're not creating clutter in areas that are completely untouched and open. So if they want more benches, let's at least try to keep them close to the other benches. So that's what that heat map represented. We took note of the different styles of benches that have been built over time. There's 3, general styles: a backless redwood bench at the top there, a redwood bench with a backrest with the stone pillars for feet, and then these half-sawn logs. So those are our 3 main styles. And you'll see as we go through the locations, we recommended a style also. The thought was that if these locations were pre-approved, essentially creating a menu where people could say, I'd like to adopt a bench or donate a bench along the pathway, and I'd like to go to this location. The style of the bench would also be predetermined, because we thought it would be inappropriate to have a mishmash of different styles of benches. So if someone selected a location right next to a half-sawn log, you'd have to dedicate that style of bench. So there was quite a bit of thought that was put into the style of bench as well. So I'll break it up into a couple sectors here for you. This is closest to 8th Avenue. And all the blue dots again are the proposed site, P1, P2, that's proposed 1, proposed 2. So then we'll drill down there. So this is just as you enter the site. You can see this is off of the walk path on the east side of the walk path, up a gentle slope. Site 3 is next to existing benches, and site 4 is just down from that on the east side again. And then we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. This is between 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue. And I'll just wheel through these again. These are on the eastern side of the site. The thought process, as I mentioned, was to keep them, back off the path enough, but also keep some separation from the street, so there's safety. Here's location numbers 8 and 9. As I mentioned, you can see, so like in proposed section number 8, you would have a predetermined style number 3, which would match the one that's right next to it. So you don't have, as I mentioned, a mishmash of styles. And then the last area that we toured with them is south of 12th Avenue, 10 and 11, 12 and 13. And this is where our recommendation ended. But as I mentioned, the Planning Commission extended 3 more benches, and I did take pictures of where these locations would be. We don't have it mapped out as cleanly as it is right here, but it's this general location, 14, 15, and 16 would just be past that on the east side of the pathway, between the rocks and the trees. So that's a quick run through of the locations that were proposed to the Planning Commission. I'm happy to go back through any more that your board would like to talk about, or if you'd like to provide feedback on any of them. And I know Shirley Moon is probably going to have some great feedback for you on some of those locations, so we can go back to locations as she's speaking if we need to. But as I mentioned before, what I'm looking for tonight from this board is feedback on the 16 already approved locations by the Planning Commission, so I can take that feedback to the commission in January when I go back, again, trying to just make sure all the stakeholders, everyone has a chance to hear their voices heard. Because as I mentioned, it's all about making sure that people feel like we're doing things for them as a local government, not to them. So with that, I'll end my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that this board might have.
Commissioner Burling?
Okay, so Brandon, I've met you before when we were one of these things we did. I would hope that this whole thing gets put aside and you really determine what the population of Carmel would like. You said you might talk to Carmel Cares, and they have done a great job. And I would hope, Shirley, that you're thinking of more plants, making it more beautiful, also, which you have in so many areas. To me, I didn't look at your plan. I went and looked at the between 8th and 14th or the Franklin White House, and I figured that at the absolute most there were good spots for 5 benches total. There could be some benches at the foot of Ocean Avenue if you wanted to include some of those, but the feeling I get, first of all, is I think the Planning Commission is 5 people. That is too small a group to make this kind of decision, which really changes the whole flavor of Carmel Walkway and Carmel Beach. Carmel, we've always had flowers. There's always been a certain number of benches, and I'm wondering who you're catering to have these more benches. Is it people who want to have their name on it? And is there still that 15-year limit on how long that name stays, and then new people can get it? Or I don't know if you're aware of that. Anyway, to the people I have talked to on this, feel that it's kind of, well, one person said it sounds like it's the Forest Theater all over again. And to me, and to several I talked to, it changes it's not Carmel and it's not Carmel Beach. The other thing is the walkway is wonderful and it's certainly well kept now. But if you've got two people walking toward you with a dog or two, and I'm walking the other direction with my dog, one of us is going to step over onto the edge. And then you see how many people are already walking down the road because it's easier. So if you had, the benches are even going to get in the way, new benches, too many of them, of being able to step aside as there's more people than the path accommodates. I would hope that you and the Planning Commission decide that it needs to be much more open. Maybe we have some meetings as there have been on other things. Carmel Cares is important to it, but other people are important to it also. So I'm hoping this is the beginning of figuring it out, not that you present it to the planning department and they decide whether they're going to change it or not. That's what my thought is.
Thank you, Board Member Burling. Madam Chair, is it okay if I respond to each board member as we go along? Would that be okay with you? Okay, I saw your head going up and down there. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Those are wonderful comments. Thank you. Yeah, and as I mentioned during my presentation, so what we have right now on the books is a City Council adopted policy regarding benches. It's a bench dedication policy, and it does say in the policy adopted by City Council that the Planning Commission is the decision maker on benches, and that's a policy we have right now. I think there's probably some wisdom in maybe opening that up at some point in the future and seeing if it needs to be modified, because the last time it was modified was 2005. It was originally written in 1989, so quite some time ago. So I think there may need to be some look at how outdated or if that needs to be updated. Rather, but your question about the 15-year thing, that was, I believe, a previous version of the bench policy that's not in there anymore.
Well, that was actually the 2005 one. So if it's not there, it's been taken out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not in there. So I did walk. I wanted to mention that I did walk with Shirley Moon. We had a wonderful walk. We spent about an hour and a half down there. It's a good way to spend time in an afternoon. And I did receive really good feedback from Shirley. And based on her assertion of what the need is down there, it was more of a 6 to 7. So I think Board Member Burling, you're on track with your number of 5. So I'll be sharing that with the Planning Commission. I took pretty good notes from my walk with Shirley, and so I'll be sharing that with them. It's important to just bear in mind that the Planning Commission meetings are a public meeting. I think, as I mentioned earlier, taking ownership of getting the word out to more people. But we did notice that meeting was publicly noticed. I do wish in hindsight that more people had shown up and participated in that, because it wasn't a secret or anything like that. If I had done, like I said, reached out to some of the stakeholders directly, like Shirley, I'm sure she would have helped pump the word out. But even with that, and Shirley will probably tell you this too, she did hear about the meeting, but it was closer to the meeting, and so she didn't get a chance to come and participate. So it's one of those fine balances where I really do feel like we need to get some more input, and that's why I'm going back through this process. But it certainly was done in the public, and it was done via the process we have. But I took really good notes from what you're saying. Thanks. I'll absolutely pass that along to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Sowers?
So Brandon, I wanted to thank you again. That was a well done overview of what was done, as far as at least looking at how adding more benches was addressed by your team. But I kind of go back to, and maybe this is more of a conversation with some of our council members about process, because it just seems to me again that we are a Forest and Beach Commission, and we're supposed to be involved in some of these decisions.
Yeah.
What the Planning Commission is the ultimate decider, great, but the stakeholders need to be involved. I think, running up a tree and understanding kind of my feedback from people on this whole bench thing, this has a smell of it like the Verizon tower pole. And I think you could head in that direction if we're going to go down the 16 more benches. that are planned here. I think you've got a lot of opposition here, and I think we need to get feedback from the residents, much like we did with the lighting in town, because that asset of the beach pathway and the beach area is a really important piece of the Carmel experience for a lot of the residents here. And I kind of feel like adding another 16 benches, I don't see the need. I mean, I don't see enough people, and I walk that path a lot, as well as I'm part of the Carmel Cares group that cleans up that area. I don't see people using the benches at a level that would even add any more benches. Besides the fact I've had to go down personally and deal with benches that are in disrepair. I mean, we've got probably a handful of benches that are dangerous. There's some that are too high to sit in. There are others, like down near the bathroom area, that aren't even secured to the concrete. So we've got problems just in getting our existing bench structure in a safe position. And I kind of point that to Bob a little bit. And now we want to add 16 more. We haven't even gotten the okay, as we talked previously in this meeting, about the structure of the walkway and getting some of the board fencing that helps the structure of the whole pathway be safe. And now we want to run ahead and add 16 benches. I mean, the priorities here don't seem to be mapping in a way that makes sense as our responsibilities as Forest and Beach Commissioners to provide a safe, comfortable environment for our residents along the pathway.
Well, thank you, Board Member Sowers. I again, just like Board Member Burling, I hear your comments. I promise you none of the benches have radio frequency emissions, but I definitely take your point where you're going with that. Like I said at the beginning, hindsight's 2020. I was just looking at how all of these had been done in the past, long before I was here, and they just went straight to the Planning Commission. But in hindsight, I mean, if I'm ever involved in these again, I would absolutely, come to this body first. And I think that if and when the bench policy is updated, that should be written into there, is that the first stop shall be the Forest and Beach Commission, and then you go to the Planning Commission for approval.
I just as another caveat to that, I don't understand. There's a master plan for the scenic pathway that's embedded in the plans of the beach, and I'm not sure, was that referred to as a part of your commission review on the overall design of the pathway and what was the intent of the pathway?
I think Bob wants to weigh in on that one.
Yeah, let me weigh in on that one. There is a draft plan that was prepared by Hall Consulting on landscaping and other improvements to the scenic pathway. Those were preliminary plans. Those are not approved construction plans by any stretch of the imagination. But it was a design with a lot of thought put into it. So it's a good tool, but it's not an official master plan document. Also, I wanted to ask, and maybe this will clarify things, the intention of the, whether it's right or wrong, the intention of the 16 bench locations was to identify where they will go. It doesn't mean that anytime soon we're going to install 16 benches one day. Maybe that would never get to that quantity, but it would just be where the locations are. Brandon, is that correct?
You have correct, Bob. So those are pre-approved locations, but they've all been spoken for. Yeah, we haven't approved any applications. Let me say this out loud. So we have had people, and Shirley's about to fall out of her chair. We've had people say they're interested in those locations. We haven't issued any approvals yet. So we did it on a first come first served basis. Then I got Shirley's letter and other letters, and so we kind of put the brakes on that and said, okay, let's get this figured out before we issue any approvals. And hopefully, I just saw Shirley breathe a sigh of relief there. But so none of them have been approved, but they've all been essentially spoken for. So we got the brakes on the bench stuff right now, so I can go back through this process.
AC, Commissioner Myers, your hand's up.
Thanks. Dr. Swanson, Brandon, thank you very much for your presentation, and really appreciate your empathy to first this commission, but of course, ultimately to the city and the residents of this city. And I think it's admirable that you're reviewing this, taking ownership of it, and then looking for all the stakeholders' feedback. And I think Commissioner Burling really said it well, that, and I think Commissioner Sauer is the same, that really, I think most of us, well, I'll speak for myself, it sounds like I'd be speaking for them too, really feel as if it's something that when it sounds like, 16 new benches, it really feels like it's something that the residents of the city would weigh in on and actually have a true opportunity. That said, you did mention, and I did some homework on the history of scenic pathway just in general, that in 32 years, we've got 37 benches. And the 16 benches that you've looked at and have ultimately determined are good locations are just that. They're not necessarily as if you were intending on, even though now you're saying that there could be spoken for, isn't necessarily that you were intending on putting all 16 out right away. And in fact, I mean, if you looked at kind of the, those 32 years and 37 benches, I mean, maybe realistically a bench a year could be the way that there could be a compromise in how it's approached. And some of those benches might be replacing old benches that are in disrepair that Commissioner Sowers mentioned. I just had one question. Again, thank you again for your presentation. This was all brought about because there was one applicant that was interested in a bench, and so was brought to you or to the Planning Commission, and that's where this came from?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And thank you for your comments, Board Member Myers. So what facilitated this, the genesis of all this, is that we had a single applicant who wanted to dedicate a bench. They put in their application, and as we've done in the past, we took that application to the Planning Commission. They did a site visit, they reviewed the bench, and they said, you know what, this location that the person's proposing isn't a good location. It's not safe. It's too close to the bluff. And as part of that conversation, the Planning Commission said, you know what, we shouldn't be doing these onesie-twosies. We should have a bigger sort of thought of where are the good locations, and let's all do those at one time, pre-approve them so people aren't having to come back to the Planning Commission over and over again. Pre-approve them, they can be done at the staff level here at the city, and then be done. So that would be sort of like the cap. And that was the genesis of that one bad location got them talking about, well, let's just finish it out. Here's however many we think is appropriate, and then there's no more room for benches.
Got it. Thank you. I'll add, there's some great volleyball courts that would love to have some benches at some point. So,
Commissioner Burling?
Yeah, I guess my question to you, Brandon, is, are these benches? I agree with Brian totally that they're not. They're wonderful to have, and you know I see certain people use the same benches, but most of the benches are empty most of the time. So are we making this a memorial, and each bench becomes a memorial? One reason for the old, and I don't know who took it out, but the 15-year limit on it was to give other people a chance. Because frankly, most people in 15 years either weren't around or felt they'd had enough. But what we're really talking about seems to me is having memorials or something that people want after they die, or, well, yeah, that's what most of them seem to be. So is that where we really want them? You know, another place we could put benches or signs or something would be Mission Trail. There are, 4 benches, 5 benches, maybe. And there's plenty of room where they could be added there. And I think even Barbara Livingston at one point said that's kind of where she'd like her bench to be. I think there'd be other places we could find. And, you know, if we could put them on sand, I don't know if you can put them on sand, they could go, you could have more at the foot of ocean over to the side where there's no planting, where it's just sand, but it's up above before you start down the hill. So I think, first of all, is this really what we want, to have our benches be memorials? And shouldn't there be a turnover of them so that we don't, every person who wants them, eventually we have, 50, 100, 200? Or should the benches be really for seating, and then we find other places for memorials.
Well, Board Member Burling, those are wonderful questions, and that's honestly why I'm here, is to get your feedback as a board member to answer that question exactly. I mean, the bench dedication policy is not specific to the scenic pathway. It's a citywide bench dedication policy. Okay. So we do have benches up at Mission Trails. Anybody can ask for a bench to be dedicated anywhere in the city. We just, you can probably guess where the #1 most requested place is to dedicate a bench. And there's a good reason for that. It's because it looks so great down there, and because of volunteers like Carmel Cares and others that make it look so wonderful. So that's what we're dealing with. So if this board has feedback on, we don't want it to feel like a memorial. I mean, they are memorial benches. That's how the program works. That's how it's set up. They're meant to memorialize people. But if one of the sentiments that this board wants to send up to the Planning Commission or through to the Planning Commission is that the board feels that this many benches would make it feel like a memorial walkway, then that's something I can pass along to the Planning Commission for you. Absolutely.
Brandon, that's exactly how I feel. So what we're trying to do is give you feedback, and we're all doing a pretty good job of that. And I agree that there are enough benches down there. I walk down there all the time. It's like my walking path. There are always empty benches. So it's not that anybody's waiting for a bench. And when I first got down here, walking along, and every once in a while you'd see a bench that was dedicated to somebody, and I would think, oh, how nice. That's just so wonderful on the one hand. On the other hand, to have what could appear to be a row of memorials sound like what you want when you're looking out at a beautiful white sand beach, Carmel Bay, and out towards Point Lobos, or whatever you can look at. I just think my feedback is I feel like there's enough benches. I'm very happy that there are people that want to do benches, and there may be other places that we can put benches where people would like to sit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, those are great comments. So I've taken note then both from Board Member Burling and from you, Madam Chair, about the memorial issue. So thank you for those comments.
Does anyone else? Oh, Commissioner Sowers?
Brandon, is there anything that we can do that can help you in your effort? I mean, I can reach out to other Planning Commission members that I know directly?
No.
Members on this? I mean, is that counterintuitive? Does it help? I mean, I don't know that it'd make much difference.
I mean, with all due respect, I don't think it would help much. I think, I'm coming here to get feedback from you all, and I'll write a staff report going forward to the Planning Commission. I think if we have Forest and Beach members reaching out to planning commissioners and board members, it might confuse and mix up the soup a little bit. But I'll tell you what, if as I'm putting together the staff report for the Planning Commission, if I need clarification from any of you about what I heard today, I can definitely reach out to you individually. Or feel free between now and then. Feel free if you think of something else, reach out to me directly as well.
Brandon, can you also clarify? You said that at the very beginning of this, there was a survey done. What kind of survey, and how many people were surveyed?
Thank you. I probably shouldn't have used the word survey. I used that more from a planning perspective. It was a survey in the sense that myself and my staff members walked the entire pathway and dropped like geolocators and like surveyed where the benches were. I probably shouldn't have used that term here, even though it's appropriate, but it does kind of confuse that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So, Brandon,
Director Ferrari?
There was no citizen feedback, correct? Except to the planning meeting that had this as a topic.
Except for those limited public members that participated in the Planning Commission. That's correct.
Director Ferrari?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's no applicants in this particular case, but we certainly should open up to the public that are in attendance. And I'm sure
if we're
people are eager to.
Thank you. we're finished with our discussion from the commission. Can we open this to the public? And again, anyone that would like to speak on this issue may. There's a limit of 3 minutes. And if you find that you're just commiserating
Muted yourself.
You're muted.
Can we open this to the public if the commission is finished with their discussion? Public can speak for 3 minutes. And if the people in front of you are saying basically the same, have the same comments you have, if you can keep your comments short, it would be appreciated by the commission and the public to move. So anyone from the public is welcome to speak. And I don't know how I'm going to find you because all I see are phone numbers with mute buttons on them.
Madam Chair, it looks like Shirley Moon does have her hand up.
I don't even, Shirley, you're welcome to speak and I don't see you anymore. I'm sorry.
I'm still here.
Good.
Thanks, Brandon, for your presentation and for your willingness to reconsider this and help us fix this issue. I do really appreciate your attitude about communication and trying to be inclusive for everyone's voice to be heard. My comments are going to be a little bit duplicated. I'm going to cut it short. I'm a little concerned about the idea of what I call bench creep, in that is what has happened over the last 33 years, where 21 additional benches were included in the pathway, installed in the pathway, after only 16 were designed to be on the pathway. And we're counting benches that are in the traditional sense a bench, but the original design came up with a lot of upside down boulders with the flat rock being supposed to be used as a bench, as well as driftwood logs. We have a lot of driftwood logs that are also served at benches, and they aren't even being counted in the 37 benches. A bad decision made with the normal procedure and by the book is still a bad decision. And a bad decision made with insufficient information is not only a bad decision, but one that should stand, it should not stand uncorrected once more information is available. I am mostly concerned that what is driving this is not the need for more benches. I have gone down there trying to capture people on a bench, and by the time I get my cell phone out to snap a picture of them, they're moving along, which is exactly the observation we've made. People, it's a walking path, and people are there, you know, if they rest for a very short time. There's always a bench available. So what's driving this? We need to go back to the original direction. It says bench installation should be by need only, and it isn't being followed. With this kind of a precious asset, it's really important that we document the actual bench usage, get the public feedback, and impart that into the process so that we aren't just narrowly making this decision based on memorial applications. The staff report explains that the proposed bench locations were clustered with the existing benches to ensure open space along the pathway, and that's the whole point. Why install any unneeded benches to detract from the open panorama created by the original award-winning design that we continue to enjoy today? Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley.
I don't see anybody else's hand up at the moment.
No.
If somebody would like to make a comment, go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom. All right. Let's see. Lucinda?
Let me unmute here.
There you go.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Shirley. I can't tell you how heartened I am by this discussion. Brandon, I think your admission of oversight is admirable. And Shirley, you've given an absolutely marvelous presentation about the benches. I don't know how many of you were in Carmel at the time when we walked on on Scenic with two-way traffic, and that was our only way to walk along the beach bluff. When Greg D'Ambrosio and Jean Grace was mayor, and they opened up our beach bluff pathway, it was absolutely wonderful, so that anybody could walk out of danger along the beach bluff. Mothers pushing baby buggies, people in wheelchairs. It was just, freedom. And the whole intent was a safe place to walk, to enjoy the view. There were a couple of benches that my family we did not request, but one was placed by the city council when my father died. He was on the council at the time, and they put a bench there because of his longstanding contribution to Carmel. When my mother died, an additional bench was put up by Carmel Heritage in honor of her contribution to Carmel and its heritage and her longstanding support. When the memorial benches started, that was kind of a new thing. And I agree with Shirley, it's not a walk of memory, it's a walk to enjoy the view. So I'm going to keep my comments short, and I also want to recognize that Sarah Burling gave very, very good comments, and I'll just dovetail on with hers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucinda. Would anyone else from the public like to speak?
I don't see anyone else's hand raised at this time.
Thank you. Then can we bring it back to the commission and see if there's any other discussion? And thank Brandon for his great presentation and all of the feedback we've gotten from both commissioners and the public.
Well, thank you. It looks like maybe there's no more, but I just want to say one more time, thank you. Oh, maybe Board Member Myers has something to ask or say.
Well, I just want to comment on what I think as commissioners, we're all aware of the fact that there is an ordinance in place for us as commissioners of the Forest and Beach to advise the city council or other government instrumentalities of the city on the preservation, enhancement, protection, and care of the Carmel-by-the-Sea beach and waterfront area. So it is our responsibility, and as a commission, we definitely should have been discussed, or this should have been discussed with us before decisions were made. And so I'm very appreciative of the fact that the directors brought this back to the table, and I'm thankful that we're able to have a platform where it can be reviewed and hopefully discussed further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Again, thank you for letting me come and speak to you, and I appreciate all the good feedback, and I will keep this commission apprised of what's going on going forward. And thank you, and I'll have a happy holidays.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Great job.
Thank you, Brandon.
Good job. Thanks. Next on our orders of business is the City Forester's monthly report for October and November of 2021.
Thank you. It's getting late, so I'm going to hit the high points for you. Back in October, we had our Arbor Day, which was great. Lots of fun, lots of people. We planted two trees down at Devendorf Park. The food was spectacular. I think that was the big draw. Also in October, we did our Downtown Beautification Week, and that's where we took that as a jumping off place to start renovating some of the ocean medians. So we're starting down at Monteverde and Lincoln, between those two streets. So we've taken out dead plants, we've cleaned them up. We have new plants coming in this week that will be able to install with new irrigation systems as well, to give a little bit of pizzazz and color. We'll see how this first island goes and how we like it. And if we like it, then we'll expand it through the rest of the ocean medians. Also, a thank you to Cindy Lloyd for helping spruce up the World War I memorial for Memorial Day. Looks lovely. CAL FIRE invited us to apply for a grant that would go towards working on our urban forest management plan and a priority planting plan. Council approved the resolution allowing us to go ahead and apply for that. And that proposal goes live to CAL FIRE tomorrow. We didn't have any big notable failures. And let's see here, our budget for contracted services for forestry and parks was increased by $150,000, which is really helpful, helping us get through the backlog of those big pines that are going into decline from the bark beetles. You all can see the tables and the numbers. So I will hop over to November. Let's see here. The pickleball courts from a meeting or two ago. We have met with some of the neighbors who live in the county, not in the city, about the noise and some of the parking issues. So we're going to be working on some better signage to get the cars to park where they should park, as well as putting some signage up for being respectful and not making so much noise on the courts. We started in with our winter planting now that it's started to cool off, and the rain is coming, which is exciting. So we're kind of at the end of the year here, and if we look back at our graph in terms of what we have going on, 2021, it's looking pretty good. Our planting numbers are climbing. That'll go up here this month as we plant the rest of our trees. And our removals are tracking way lower than the recent previous years, which is really good. So we're removing fewer trees now. So that was the sped up version. Is there any questions for me? Commissioner Myers has his hand up.
Okay, thanks. Thanks first, Sarah. Congratulations on that that grant. Though at least the preliminary grant proposal. I really hope that that comes all the way through. That's a big chunk of change, that's for sure. You did mention as we are coming to the close with 41 trees planted. What are you calling your end of year number?
Right now, as of November, that report was at 50. So I have 9 that went in so far in December, and I'm queued up for 10 more. So we'll get past that closer to 75 mark. But then we'll start off next year in January, February, March, still continuing to plant. So the planting season crosses 2 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? All right, seeing.
You muted yourself.
Madam Chair, you're muted again.
Muted again. So sorry. So sorry. Our next Did anybody have any other questions before I move on? For Sarah? Okay, moving on to our next order of business will be our report from our Public Works Director. Director Herrera, will you give us your report?
I certainly will, and I'll try to my best to keep this short. Topic A is City Council actions pertaining to forest, parks, and beach issues. We already talked about the Urban and Community Forestry Grant. I'm not sure if Sarah mentioned it because I was texting Brandon too much, but the City Council on November 2nd did approve a $150,000 increase for additional tree removals and prunings and plantings. So that was a good bump in budget. At the December 1st City Council meeting, special meeting, the council authorized 3 new positions to be added to Public Works. This will make a huge difference. One would be a management analyst that would help Sarah out. Sarah's administrative workload is off the charts, as well as her technical workload is off the charts. So we're thinking that's going to be a big boost to helping out in forestry. Another position is administrative technician to mostly help out the environmental compliance manager, who you've met on several occasions, and kind of run some of the specific projects in the Mission Trails Nature Preserve and at North Dunes. And we also got approval for another park or another maintenance worker to focus on forestry. So that's 3 significant additional positions to help Public Works, and we're looking forward to filling those positions. Also, the council on December 2nd is recommending there will be a holiday closure. So City Hall and Public Works and Forestry, we're going to be pretty much shut down between Friday, December the 24th, which would be the Christmas Eve holiday, through Sunday, January the 2nd. So we'll all be back on the 3rd. So in other words, that last week of December, we'll certainly have police, fire, and ambulance service as usual. But you'll have, if anyone answers the phone from Public Works, I'll be surprised. It will really be down to bare bones that particular week. I think that's all for item 1. Second is capital improvements. We are now 3/4 done with the fire fuel abatement and Mission Trails Nature Preserve. Work's being done by Tope's Tree Service. And that most of that $58,000 was funded by a Coastal Conservancy grant for $45,000. So that job is coming to an end. We have our annual ADA compliance project. So within a matter of weeks now, we'll be adding a new ADA compliant drinking fountain at the Forest Hill Park, as well as ADA compliant men's restroom partitions at the Del Mar restroom. These are very exciting things. I see that your interest is way up there, but that's what we're doing. Somebody has to do it. I believe that's it for projects. Climate Committee meeting. I will just read a brief sentence to highlight something. So there was a Climate Committee public workshop on November the 18th. I think 1 or 2 of you were there, but I'd just like to read what happened. LSA Associates, who are working on the greenhouse gas emissions forecasting, and Rincon Consultants, who are doing the adaptation strategies and projects, and staff presented a summary of the vulnerability report, which we put in your packet a couple months ago. That was that giant technical report for your information. They also reviewed a draft list of strategies to adopt climate change and potential projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Attendance was quite a bit lower than expected. We really had a bare bones attendance, which was disappointing. However, nonetheless, we still had good public comments and good ideas were generated from that workshop. Another thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not sure if it's a project or climate change or somewhere in between. At a prior commission meeting, I talked about that we were going after a $180-something thousand grant from the California Coastal Commission to install a new boardwalk between the Del Mar, the little boardwalk that goes out to the lookout, the overlook, and to bring that up straight north to tie into the boardwalk that exists at 4th Avenue, and it would be due west of the volleyball courts. There was also talk about possible steps to go down from that new boardwalk down to the beach. So we had an initial green light from the California Coastal Conservancy. They thought it was an interesting project and be worthwhile for funding. That is still the case, but we're not ready yet. So in that process of developing our permit application, they want to know a lot more about the erosion problem that we have at the beach, both at the volleyball court area as well as down by Del Mar. That is a funded capital project, but we just don't have anyone to run it at this point. To have a coastal engineering firm look at the erosion, come up with a strategy of how we're going to address that ongoing erosion. We need that information to properly apply for the grant for that boardwalk. So we could do the grant now, but it probably won't be funded because we have a fairly big hole in the works. It's still a likely to be funded project. It's just have to probably push it off a year or two. Let's see what else. Volunteer organizations, I believe you heard a lot about that already. If I see if I missed anything. Carmel Cares, as you know, it's doing a fantastic job. Just wanted to point out, one thing I thought was really neat is that the Median Minder program continues to blossom. There's more and more people signed up all the time, which is great. But what's particularly interesting, at least for me, is that there's some children now and whole families that are participating. So I think it's becoming started from, with small hopes and dreams, and now it's really flourishing. And if you drive around town, you'll see quite a few medians that are looking pretty good. So that's a wonderful thing. I'm not sure where we are on my list anymore, but just a couple of final things. Leadership Carmel. Last year, Leadership Carmel's first group installed those hearts. You recall the big hearts around town that were sold off for charitable organizations, I believe. This year, I've been working with Leadership Carmel on a different project. I don't want to give it away. I just want to give you just what's it called? A teaser, like when you a movie theater or a movie teaser, that they're looking at doing something interesting at First Murphy Park. First Murphy Park's next to the house. It's on the corner of Lincoln and 6th. It needs some loving. And I think this group has some ideas to put some heart and soul into it. So once we have some more information, be happy to bring that to the Forest and Beach Commission. I think they're really getting excited to make that happen. I know this is a public meeting. I just don't think I wanted to give you an advance notice that we're thinking about something that would be really great for one of our parks. And Brandon will say that I shouldn't have said anything because it's too preliminary, but that's me. And a tree care specialist candidate to replace the one who left us for a higher paying job in the private sector. We have a candidate. We've had a candidate identified for a week or a month and a half or so. Everything is ready to go. The candidate has accepted the offer. They have to do a background check through the Department of Justice. And because the person's last name is fairly popular, it's taking much, much longer. It's usually 2 or 3 days that we get the results. They're usually okay. Maybe there's an axe murderer here and there, but most of the time it's just fine. But we can't have the person start until we have that official clearance, Department of Justice. So that's kind of holding us up, and that's kind of giving a little bit of backlog to our tree work. But overall, we're doing pretty good with trees, as Sarah would say. And I believe that is all I have to report for today for those last 2 months. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Sowers?
Thanks, Bob. Hey, I just had a quick question here is, I sat in on that climate committee workshop. It was really done. I'm impressed that a city the size of Carmel would put that much effort into that type of forward thinking.
Right.
Made me proud to be a member of the city and that the city's being that forward thinking. The challenge I see now, though, a little bit with this, because again, when I had talked earlier about my concerns about the sand movement, and we had the conversation about the fact we'll go meet with the climate committee, and then I met with them, and got, again, kind of a little bit kick the can down the road. But again, now we've got a grant for $150,000 plus that's in check because of the fact that we can't get this study done on, and that the study, as I understood it from the climate committee, was maybe a year, maybe 2 years out. I mean, again, it goes back to what are the priorities here? Because it sounds like that study is really critical, and now we're losing the potential for get grant money for things that are really impactful to the beach area. I mean, what can we do to push this along? I mean, is it
correct? The reason we're in this predicament is because COVID hit. When COVID hit, we didn't know what impact it would be on our fiscal revenue side of things. The city took a very conservative approach. We laid off quite a few people, including our project manager, which is now coming back to bite us in the butt. We have authorization to hire a project manager. We've been in the process of doing that for 5 or 6 months now. We made an offer for one candidate. They kind of implied they would accept, but at the end of the day, they did not. We have to start the process over. There was no second candidate to do this. So we are in a world of hurt. The city council just recently, on Tuesday, I believe, adjusted the salary range for the project manager so we can attract people that are more skilled than amateur plumbers. So I think with the improved salary schedule, we'll be able to attract more. We're working with an HR consultant, in fact, to get the word out, not just in California like we did the first time, but perhaps nationally. We need a project manager. There are other projects that are in jeopardy of losing grant funds as well. Mission Trails is one of them. So we are looking at doing what we can. I can't start projects that I can't keep going. So my hands are tied, all of our hands are tied. We need additional staffing. And it got to so dire, that's why the city council approved, I believe, 12 new positions citywide. All the city departments are just really strapped for people. We're really pushing the envelope with the people we have. We have been hit by a couple of key resignations. So that's, I don't want to point fingers and it's just, we need a project manager, but we need a project manager. And then we'll also need time for that person to get up to speed, figure out where Ocean Avenue is. So hopefully that answers the question. It's not the preferred.
So there's no opportunity for a consultant at all. It's just really, we've got to hire an in-hire.
We have looked into consultants as well. We are doing that in the environmental compliance side. In fact, Agnes has 2 firms for on-call as needed services. Sarah has 5, or I think, tree contractors for tree service. Yeah, 5 contractors for tree services, but not, I think only a couple of them do the professional consulting work. We have looked into that for doing some of the other projects. I have a project for the paving project that's been ready to go for over a year, and I just can't launch it yet because somebody's going to have to, walk the contractor through the bid phase. So it's believe me, it's very frustrating for me as well and for my team.
Appreciate the honesty.
Any other questions? Future agenda items?
Can I make a recommendation to revisit the ad hoc committee on the marketing, or I forgot what exactly the term was?
Outreach.
Outreach.
The outreach committee. That definitely still needs to happen because we keep seeing these contractors not getting permits or just going to town, and we need to, you know, as your commission well knows, we need to do better to get the word out. Here's what the rules are in this town.
I'll turn that the burners back on that one. That's me needing to lead that back. So,
a New Year's resolution.
All right. Speaking of New Year's resolutions, I think we're ready for adjournment. So I want to wish everybody the happiest of holidays, and I'll see you all next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everybody.
Take care.